Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show in this Thursday AM special episode. There's two things in particular I want to get to with you today. No guest, just me. We mentioned it on the show on Wednesday, but did you see any of this hearing that they had in the Senate on Monday? It was called the American Health and Nutrition, a Second Opinion Roundtable discussion at the Senate. It was hosted by U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. And it was so eye-opening and alarming. And I really, really, really hope you guys will go back and look at it. It's 4 hours long. You could watch it on 2.0, but we'll post a link to it in our episode description. I'm going to give you just a couple of highlights. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Did you know that there's nearly $1 trillion of infrastructure and pandemic funds yet to be spent? That's right. There is still a massive amount of money that the lame duck administration is pushing hard to spend in their last few months in office. If the president is able to push these funds out, we could see another prolonged inflation surge, just like we did during COVID. But there is hope. A gold IRA from Birch Gold Group can be an inflation hedge for your savings in uncertain times. To see how to protect your IRA or 401k, get your free info kit on gold by texting the word MK to 989898. Birch Gold makes it seamless to roll over your retirement account while preserving your tax-advantaged status. Don't wait for the president's spending spree to potentially tank the dollar even further. Protect your financial future now by diversifying. Text MK to the number 989898 for your free info kit from Birch Gold. You know Dr. Casey Means. She was on our show a couple Fridays ago promoting her book, Good Energy. And it's an incredible read, and it's very upsetting, but also a call to action when it comes to what we're feeding our children and ourselves. She talks about what we're doing to our cells, mitochondrial damage that we're causing to ourselves, and how the entire system is set up to hurt us. From the way we shop, to the way we farm, to the way we feed kids in school, to the way our doctors treat us, to the way they hook us on medicine and Big Pharma steps in to keep us hooked forever, to how doctors in med school are not educated on how to heal anything. No prevention, no nutrition. It's all about how to treat illnesses that are there with a pill or a scalpel. And the whole system's on its head when it comes to our well-being and our health. So RFKJ was there. He was one of sort of the co-hosts, I would say. But it really wasn't about him. He was making good points, but it was really about these activists who have been in this space for a long time sounding the alarm. Here's a soundbite from Casey Means, doctor, Stanford-educated surgeon, on what she didn't learn in med school. It's Top 37.
It's not an overstatement to say that I learned virtually nothing at Stanford Medical School about the tens of thousands of scientific papers that elucidate these root causes of why American health is plummeting and how environmental factors are causing it. For instance, in medical school, I did not learn that for each additional serving of ultra-processed food we eat, early mortality increases by 18%. This now makes up 67% of the foods our kids are eating. I took 0 nutrition courses in medical school. We need a return to common sense and intuition. We need a return to awe for the sheer miraculousness of our lives. We need all hands on deck.
Casey's book goes into things like, truly ultra-processed foods being the absolute worst. The absolute worst. They're everywhere. Stay out of the middle of the grocery store. It's the food you put in your pantry or your cupboard. It's not the food around the aisles, on the outskirts of the grocery store that will spoil in a week if you leave it on the counter. That's the stuff that you should be eating. But you should be eating organic versions of it, organic fruits and vegetables. I know it's expensive, but so is high healthcare. A lot of healthcare needs. And unfortunately, the system is set up to make you sick. So it's a must. And she was talking in great detail about, the amount of pesticides that we are putting on our fruits and vegetables in the modern American farm is absolutely horrifying. And that these are carcinogens. They're carcinogens. And we expect them to kill on impact all of these bugs. But with us, it's supposed to be fine. Like, does absolutely nothing to us. We're some, magical creature that doesn't have any blowback from consuming all of these chemicals. So organic fruits and vegetables, pasture-raised organic chicken and eggs, grass-fed organic beef, and milk too, grass-fed milk, wild-caught fish, because the other stuff is filled with a bunch of stuff, not just toxins, but plastics and so on. She talks about exercise and how if there were a drug that you could take that would reduce your risk of Alzheimer's in half, it would be the number one best-selling drug in all of America. And she writes in the book, it's called walking, 10,000 steps a day. That's it. Like move your body, get a treadmill, get a walking treadmill, a raisable desk and a walking treadmill underneath it so you can get your steps in. Challenge yourself. Hot and cold therapy. You can just turn your shower to cold at the end of the shower, 2 minutes. Start with 30 seconds, work your way up to 60, then do 2. It eventually doesn't hurt. It hurts in the beginning. But your body needs to be shocked with extreme heat and extreme cold because that's how we used to live, right? Like our ancestors who grew up in the mountains would face 40-degree temperatures overnight and 80-degree temperatures during the day. And we're used to that, not 72 degrees perfectly comfortable inside a climate-controlled living room or office all day. Talks about getting back in touch with nature. You heard a little bit of that in her soundbite about how you should be outside for some 15 minutes within the first hour of waking up. You be the one to walk your dogs. You be the one to go out get the paper off your driveway. Connecting with nature through hikes or moonlight stargazes or, yes, feet in the grass and your children too. And sort of reconnect with our connection with one another and how we're all related. We're all part of the same cycle that regenerates generation after generation, both the earth and ourselves. There's a lot in that book, and there was a lot at that hearing that was really sensible. And also, let's be honest, somewhat infuriating when it comes to the incentives that these companies have to keep us sick. That big pharma, medicine, big ag, they don't give a damn about the amount of pesticides they're shoving at us. They just want to make money. They don't give a damn about the ultra-processed foods they're shoving down our children's faces in school and at the grocery store. They just want to make money. And then the doctors make money on the back end because everyone gets sick. Because colon cancer rates are going up and pancreatic cancer is striking at younger and younger ages. And people are dying, but the system always wins. The system lives on and finds a whole new generation of potential victims. There was a woman who I mentioned on the show. She was great. Her name is Vani Hari, and she's a food activist. She was there with a guy named Jason Karp, who's the founder and CEO of Human Co-Brands and co-founder of something called Hugh Kitchen. And they got up there to talk about the difference just between Europe and the United States, about how the European government does actually have some baseline regulations on what can be in the food supply. We have none. It's still the Wild West here. And she made this example with a few different food types, including Fruit Loops. Here's a bit of that.
This is the Canadian version.
This is the brightness of the Canadian version, just for visibility. And this is the brightness of artificial food dyes. So, of course, Kellogg and other food companies will argue children prefer this over this, just as they would prefer cocaine over sugar. That doesn't make it okay.
But I think
the addiction to sugar, not to mention those food dyes, which are carcinogens, is rampant. You guys know by this point the story of how these food groups decided that saturated fat was going to be made the bad guy and sugar was going to be added into all our foods. So we got rid of saturated fat. We put sugar in everything. We all got addicted to sugar. Our kids are addicted to sugar. Casey Means writes in her book, do you know how much sugar kids actually should be taking in? These little kids, the federal guidelines suggested something like 25 grams. Zero. I used to really like these Yasso bars. I still like them. I'm not going to lie. They have 18 grams of sugar. That's like the lighter Greek yogurt style ice cream, just on a stick. So your amount you take in is limited. That's not how kids eat ice cream. Most kids have like a big bowl of ice cream. And in a lot of families, like my own, we were allowing to happen every night. We were not stopping our kids from having dessert. They're thin. They seem healthy. That's terrible. Like, I'm ashamed we were doing that we're not doing that now. But think about it. Like, the whole industry is a big shoulder shrug. What did they do in school? Every time somebody has a birthday, there's a treat, there's a cake, there's a cookie, there's something that's both highly or ultra processed and sugary to perpetuate your kid's addiction. You go out to dinner, seed oils, they're in everything. We showed you the video a couple weeks ago of how seed oils are made. It looks like filling up the gas tank in your car. I don't even know what that substance is. It's absolutely disgusting. And it's in everything. Vegetable oil sounds so healthy. Olive oil. Yes. Coconut oil. Yes. Avocado oil. Yes. But all these things, try going and eating healthy seeds and nuts in the grocery store. They are healthy, seeds and nuts. That's a good snack. Unless you buy the 90% prepackaged kind that are everywhere that say they were roasted in sunflower oil, which they almost all do. Pesto, vegetable oil, sunflower oil, whatever oil. You have to really look to find olive oil as the base. You have to read all the ingredients. It takes a lot of time. Who's got time to learn all these lessons? But these changes could be potentially life-saving. I'm irritated we have to work so hard for it. I want a store that will just offer only healthy foods. And I mean truly healthy, without the pesticides, without the ultra-processed stuff, without all the sugar, the added sugar. They're not complaining about the sugar that's in a pear. Without drinks like sodas and fruit juice, which is just the devil. There isn't such a thing. And when they tried at this hearing to call attention to these issues, they got laughed at. You know, I talked about the Atlantic article that referred to it as the woo-woo summit. Screw you. That magazine is owned by Lorraine Powell Jobs. Do you think she has to worry about what's on the back of a cereal box? She's got chefs and drivers, and she probably has her own organic regenerative farm from which she eats all of her own stuff, including beef and so on. She's probably got only the wild-caught salmon brought to her. She doesn't have to worry about this. So she has this magazine, The Atlantic, in which one of her writers just shits all over the expertise of doctors from Stanford and Harvard, the best institutions, as just woo-woo, they're nuts, they're crazy. Why? Because the vast majority of advertisers and the mainstream media are controlled by Big Pharma. The vast majority are controlled. So they have no interest in doing stories that make Pfizer look bad, not to mention Kellogg's. No interest whatsoever. And people like Lorraine Powell Jobs, Steve Jobs' widow, have absolutely none of the same concerns that you or I or people who are working class have in terms of ease and functionality and cost in getting groceries and food into their homes that won't poison themselves. The other thing is the water supply. The fluoride in the vast majority of water, not to mention all of the pollutants. Get a water filter. Get a Brita. That's actually not that expensive. Get a Brita and just drink through. I haven't been doing it. If you haven't, you're not alone. I hadn't either. I like to consider myself as somebody who's relatively well informed. Nope. Now we have one, and you can get, the kind that goes right on your faucet if you prefer that. You could do just your drinking faucet, but ideally you'd do the faucet in your bathroom if you pour up a glass of water there before you go to bed or when you wake up. There's a special kind of faucet I just found out, filter that you can get that like filters all the water that comes into your house. I think it's large and it's probably not cheap. I have not yet asked those questions, but there's options out there to clean up your water supply, not to mention your air supply. I don't have an air filter in my house. I don't have one, but I'm going to get one. The amount of plastics that we're breathing and pollution that we're breathing, they actually say it's less polluted outside than inside. We heard that from Casey Means. All these things we could be changing to improve our well-being and that of our children. And we have a government that's fighting against us. We have an industry around every corner that's fighting against us because it's not in their financial interest to have us get better. So it's outrageous. Here was RFKJ talking about how now, of course, everyone is hooked on Ozempic. And they're starting to push it for children as young as 6. SOT 38.
It's not 74% of Americans are obese. The cost of all of them, if they take their Ozempic prescriptions, will be $3 trillion a year. For half the price of Ozempic, we could purchase regeneratively raised organic agriculture, organic food for every American, 3 meals a day, and gym membership for every obese American. Why are members of Congress doing the bidding of this Danish company instead of standing up for American farmers and children?
Good question. I mean, it certainly serves big ag, the food companies. They would love us to remain as obese as we are. We're at record levels of obesity right now in this country. They would love that. We're patients forever. And we just buy more food and we sit on our couch and then we go to the big pharma companies and we ask for either Ozempic or somebody who will cure all the health problems that we've caused by eating this way and living this way. That's fantastic for them. They don't give a damn about you or me. That's what Jillian Michaels was trying to say. She was there too, from The Biggest Loser. She's got a great podcast now. She spent her life trying to help people get in shape, move more, live in a more healthy way. Here she was in SOT 36.
In the late 70s and the early 80s, a sinister series of events converged to change food and subsequently health in America indefinitely. A plague that crept like a fog while we slept, literally and figuratively, blindly trusting that the powers that be would never betray us. I mean, it seemed unthinkable to question whether a corporation would poison us for profit. The default human condition in the 21st century is obese by design. Specific, traceable forms of what's referred to as structural violence are created by the catastrophic quartet of big farming, big food, big pharma, and big insurance. They systematically corrupt every institution of trust, which has led to the global spread of obesity and disease.
It's really totally disheartening, but you can do something about it. This MAHA thing, it's for real. That's a movement that will live on no matter who wins this election. Make America healthy again, as Nicole Shanahan was talking about yesterday. That must continue, and you'll hopefully be a part of it. Stop buying these foods. Stop buying the stuff with the food coloring in it. Stay away from the inside of the grocery store aisles. Shop the perimeter. Stop patronizing these companies that are trying to hurt us, and start moving your bodies more and sleeping better, right? We had a guy on this show a couple of years ago. He was awesome. I'll get the show number for you, but he talked about how you need to set a sleeping schedule for yourself. Doug and I, we go to bed every night no later than 10:15. Obviously there's a night here or there where that doesn't work, but for the most part, I would say 85% of our lives, that's when we go to bed. And we wake up between 6 and 6:30. And that's 8 hours. Maybe we sleep 7 of them. Sometimes we're lucky and we sleep 8 of them, but it's not even, what's really important is that you sleep well, where you get that deep sleep. It was episode 284 with Matt Walker, episode 284 in our archive. But you do have to prioritize your sleep. That's critical to preventing dementia and to living well and give your body and cells a chance to regenerate. So anyway, all these things can be done. Adjusting your sleep schedule, that doesn't take any sort of money. For most people, it just takes the will to be a bit more regulated on your yeses, on your social calendar, and so on. And, pulling away from television at that hour of night and so on. So anyway, I wanted to bring this to you because it's being so ignored by the mainstream media, and that's what they want. So F them. F them. We're not going to ignore it. We're going to talk about it. All right. Now I want to shift gears because I've got to talk to you about what happened over on CNN and then subsequently The View in the media, because this is just the most ridiculous media story we've seen in a while. It involves a professor at Vanderbilt University named Michael Eric Dyson. He was on CNN. Nancy Mace, Republican representative from the state of South Carolina, was there as well. And they were giving her a hard time because on the show on CNN, she was not pronouncing Kamala correctly. Well, there was a bit of a meltdown because just like Bill Clinton, she wasn't pronouncing it correctly. And that's not allowed, you see. Take a listen to how that went in SOT 14.
When you disrespect Kamala Harris by saying you will call her whatever you want, I know you don't intend it to be that way. That's the history and legacy of white disregard for the
humanity of black people.
Oh, so now you're calling me racist.
I didn't say. I just said you weren't a racist.
That is complete.
No, you don't have to intend racism to accomplish.
You are
Get your name right.
Kamala Harris. If
Kamala.
I were
Kamala.
You said this.
We don't call you Nancy.
It's Kamala. You're doing this on purpose, Congresswoman.
That's disrespectful.
Just a second.
So now just hold on to that thought, okay? First, he lays into her saying that this is part of a history of white disregard for the humanity of black people. White disregard for the humanity of black people. Then she says, oh, now you're calling me racist. No, I didn't say you don't have to intend, he says, you don't have to intend racism in order to say something racist, in order to be racist. You don't have to intend it. Intent is irrelevant. They've been saying this a lot in the past few years. It's part of the whole DEI initiative. Your intent is irrelevant. Your statements either are or are not racist. Your behavior either is or is not racist. And what he says her behavior is that she's part of a history and legacy of white disregard for the humanity of black people. Now you tell me, was she being accused of racism or not? Hello, it's very obvious. And I don't blame her for being irritated. Which she was. So I don't know, it was a day or two after that, Nancy Mace finds herself back at her real job, which is in Congress. And previously in this hearing, okay, it was a month later, previously in this hearing, we're going to play you a soundbite from, a Democrat decided to go off on people who are not pronouncing Kamala Harris's name correctly. Same old thing. It's racist, about sexist, whatever it is. And Nancy Mace came up later in the congressional hearing and tried to rebut some of those claims that were being made. And here is what she did in part in SOT 13.
I would like to also enter into the record a screenshot of a text message I received from the esteemed professor from Vanderbilt, Michael Eric Dyson, after my CNN interview, begged me for photos. In this text, he says, after calling me racist on CNN, shh, don't tell anybody, we look good together, and sent me a kissy emoji.
Without
then
objection.
The guy says I'm gorgeous in all these photos. I don't think he's that bent out of shape on how anyone pronounces Kamala. And if we're going to have that standard, you got to hold it to both sides, not just one or the other.
That last comment was a reference to, she went through all the Democrats who mispronounced Kamala's name. It's not just a Republican thing. It's an unusual name, and people take time to get used to it. And people, even who are her fans, mispronounce it. So just shut up. They're constantly looking for some reason to play the race card. We've seen that for years. We all know it. So whatever. So she enters into the record that Michael Eric Dyson sent her flirty texts after he called her, suggested she was a racist on CNN. And she enters into the congressional record a picture of the two of them backstage at CNN, we would later learn, in which he comments on how good they look together and her gorgeousness, which I got to be honest, I thought was kind of funny. I don't blame her. If she's a racist, if she's somebody who says racist things, Why would you pose for a nice picture, all smiles, and be so complimentary of her behind the scenes as soon as the TV cameras are off? Why would you do that? Well, Michael Eric Dyson, who is on wife number 3, decided to try to explain why he did that in an Instagram post, which is frankly somewhat bizarre. Saw 12.
I ain't tried to hit on this woman on no day. These are other people that I interacted with recently, my friends, some of them. My friend Allison, I said, nice, you look gorgeous. Then there is my friend Terry, who I was giving tickets to for the Democratic National Convention. You look gorgeous as always. Then my colleague Lisa at Vanderbilt, and I said, me and Miss Gorgeous. And then Councilwoman Mary Sheffield, I said, gorgeous and brilliant leader. To Dana Bash, well, I congratulated her on the interview she did with Kamala Harris. Besides being brilliant and courageous, you also look gorgeous. And then I put a power hand and a smiley, a face with hearts. I ain't hitting on Nancy Mace. I often acknowledge people's gorgeousness, and men's too, by everybody. So my point is that this is a woman trying to exploit a situation. I have not dated white women. Not that that's a problem. And let me correct one thing I did say. That night I said, you're a wonderful woman. Let me correct myself. You are a racist. You are a racially charged, small-minded, bigoted person. I've read other exchanges with people where I've called them gorgeous. And if you're that desperate that you need a black man to holler at you, I'm not the one to do it. There are plenty on your side who can do that, ma'am, but you got the wrong brother in me.
Once again, he plays the race card. And what kind of a weird defense? I call every woman not my wife gorgeous. And going through the long list of the women, and I told her she's gorgeous and she's gorgeous and she's gorgeous. I have a little piece of free advice for you, Michael. Pro tip. Stop telling women not your wife how gorgeous they are. It tends to lead a woman to think you might be interested in her. It's a weird thing to say, that word in particular, to a bunch of women who are not your wife. Honestly, that's just weird. If Nancy Mace were posing with her husband and you said, gorgeous couple, that's fine. You're both gorgeous. I can get on board with that. Your gorgeousness and shh, don't tell anybody, but we look good together. There are very few women on earth who would not perceive that as a come on. It goes back to intent, Michael. You may not have intended it as a come on to Nancy Mace, but that is how it was received, and therefore you're guilty. These are your rules. We're just playing by them. So then this guy has the gall to go on The View, which quickly laundered the whole situation into, once again, he's the victim and it's racial. Watch.
So because we live in the crazy year of 2024, she then later accused you of sending her flirty texts, which she entered into the congressional record. Can you clear this up for us, Professor?
I'm a preacher, so I know sin, my own and others, right? Nobody's perfect. As a professor, I've seen things evolve over space and time. What you could say 20 years ago, can't say today.
No. Yeah.
Not because you're suddenly wrong, but the temper of the times has changed.
Right.
So if you acknowledge a woman's beauty, that is a power imbalance, there's a problem there. But peer-to-peer, a different story.
Yeah.
Still cautious, but different. So when it comes to Nancy Mace, you see I tried to be nice to the woman. I said, you're a wonderful woman. I lied. I then said, but I tried to be nice to her. Yeah. And then even when I pointed out to her what the repetition of the misnaming of Kamala Harris would do, she got defensive. Oh, you're calling me a racist. No.
And you never did. I
never did.
Yeah.
I think Shakespeare said the lady doth protest too much. Yeah. So the point is that this woman has now depended upon, like her inspiration, Donald Trump, a racist trope. The black brute seeks the innocent white woman. Now, and I'll say one final thing to all of these white Christians, and she's one of them. The Bible says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn their face to God and turn away from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and then I will forgive their sins and I will heal the land. They have not forgiven themselves. White Christians hate themselves for the past wrongs that have been done. And I'm here as a loving Christian to say, let's grapple with that past.
Oh my God, there's so much to go over. So the question is tossed to him, right? Like, what happened? Clear up what happened. Immediately, what does he do? He goes into religion. I'm a preacher. I know sin, my own and others. Now, you know from Phil Houston's By the Lie, one of the things that liars do is invoke religion. Right away. They invoke religion. It's a dodge. It's an attempt to convince you they're a good person. The truth is not his ally, so he ran from it. I mean, this is just classic deception. He goes on, blah, blah, blah. I tried to be nice to the woman. I said, you're a wonderful woman. I lied, but I tried to be nice. So he's on the attack, right? Now he's got to attack her, and goes on again. Then he tries to say, she said, oh, you're calling me a racist. No. And Alyssa Farag Griffin chimes in, and you never did. I was watching. Well, it's true he never uttered the words, you are a racist, but he did say that her refusal to pronounce Kamala's name correctly was part of a history and legacy of white disregard for the humanity of black people. And when she said, you're basically calling me a racist, he said, you don't have to intend racism to actually be doing it. That's calling someone racist, sir. I don't blame Nancy Mace for receiving that message from you, because that is what you were saying. That is exactly what you were saying, that it's racist for her not to properly pronounce Kamala's name. Then he goes into this ridiculous, okay, now this woman, just like her inspiration, Donald Trump, she uses a racist trope. The black brute seeks the innocent white woman. And then you've got Whoopi chiming in. That's right. Oh, okay. She used a racist trope to attack me. The black brute seeks the innocent white woman. That's what he says she was doing by releasing the text messages. You're just upset you got caught. That's why you're upset. She wasn't trying to make you look like a black brute seeking the innocent white woman. She was calling into question your sincerity in suggesting she was a racist. If you really thought that, you would not be hitting on her in her DMs right after the show. And you know, Professor at Vanderbilt, that that's exactly what she was doing, because you don't seem like a dumb man. You once again play the race card to excuse your own bad behavior. Maybe you do really text 10,000 women in a year about how gorgeous they are. That's a failing, sir. That's a failing. And when it comes back to bite you in the ass, you should just say, I'm sorry. That's it. You don't have to try to attack her again, once again saying she's racist. And there wasn't one sane person on the set of The View, I know you're shocked, to actually speak honestly about what happened and about what he did, how he attacked her, and then he came onto her, and then he played the race card and the victim, and then was allowed to repeat the cycle on the set of ABC News, which is no longer in the news business. It is in the business of doing one thing, and that is getting Kamala Harris elected and doing anything they can to make Trump or his supporters look bad. Would love your feedback. Taking your emails, Megyn@MegynKelly.com. When we come back, I'm actually going to take some of your questions that have been sent to that very email address. Don't go away. Cyber attacks are on the rise, with corporate megastores falling victim to data breaches that could expose your private information. Now these same megastores are lobbying DC politicians to pass the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. According to our sponsor, Electronic Payments Coalition, this bill could leave you even more vulnerable to credit card cyber attacks, while megastores pocket billions in additional profits. Learn more at guardyourcard.com and then consider telling Congress to guard your card. The Electronic Payments Coalition says Americans lose when politicians choose. Again, that's guardyourcard.com. Now we're doing a feature we call Asked and Answered, where I answer your questions and address your thoughts about the show or topics in the news. Anything you want. You can email me, Megyn, MEGYN, at megynkelly.com. Or you can just go to megynkelly.com now, and they'll prompt you on how to sign up. Okay, I've got my executive producer, Steve Krakauer, here, who's been going through the mailbag, which I do read. Meg Storm runs our website, and she pulls the emails for me and collates them and puts them, and I get them every week. So to all those people saying, I know you don't read this, because we say, I do too. Yes, I do. I read as many of them as I can. And that's a lot. I would say I read most of them. Steve, what do we have this week?
Yeah, Megyn, I read them too. We like a lot of great emails. Keep them coming, Megyn at megynkelly.com. Love the comments, but also questions. We're going to be doing these questions now every week. So questions, we love those. We'll try to answer them. And the first question comes from Lily, who wants to know, what does Trump publicly saying, I hate Taylor Swift, as he did on Truth Social, achieve except to make himself look childish and petty? She says Trump needs to publicly say, despite how I feel about Taylor Swift, keep in mind that voting for Kamala means you want to continue runaway inflation and increasing crime and open borders. That's her prescription. What do you think?
That doesn't sound like Donald Trump to me. I thought it was perfectly on brand for Trump. And honestly, I know that it caused a lot of consternation. It didn't bother me. I mean, as somebody who came out that night and said, screw you, Taylor Swift, I was like, I'm in a glass house here. I realize I'm not running for president and he is, but I don't think that hurt him. I think he's trying to telegraph to people, she's bad. You shouldn't like her either. And there may be some people who are like, you know what? I'm kind of sick of her too. You know how it's like when one person says it, then you're like, I don't really like her either. And then one thing happens after another. Look, there was just a poll out. What was it, Steve? Was it the CNN poll or the Quinnipiac poll?
Quinnipiac, yeah.
Yeah, Quinnipiac showed that Taylor Swift's endorsement hurt more than helped Kamala Harris. More people are likely not to vote for her in the wake of the endorsement. So you could argue it was actually smart of Trump to attack her and just telegraph to the MAGA faithful or adjacent who hadn't heard about the endorsement that Taylor sucks. We don't like Taylor. That's him like saying she's on the outs now. I just think so often, Steve, people are quick to judge Trump's marketing brand and branding instincts. And that is the one area where you really shouldn't question him.
Yeah. Genius there. Absolutely. All right. Here's another one. This is from Maria. Maria wants to know, I'm a 32-year-old right-leaning libertarian. She says, my family and friends are split on politics. She said, I don't feel the need to push my agenda as I'm pretty much middle of the road, but sometimes I hear people who are planning to vote and I don't understand why that's happening, why they're voting a certain way. She says, how would you approach conversations with them?
I mean, I like to ask questions. Right? Like that's my job. But I also think it's a great way of really finding out where somebody stands and really listen to the answers and ask follow-up questions. And if you're not looking to change their worldview, you might be illuminated and more forgiving of them. I mean, I know a lot of my friends are like very, very, very pro-choice. They are not going to vote for the Republicans, period. Okay, I get it. I mean, I have a different set of priorities, but that doesn't mean I think they're bad people for having their set. And maybe it could cause a settlement of sorts between the two of you. Or maybe it's an issue on which you're really well educated and you could gently ask questions that kind of probe, well, like take the trans issue. Do you know like what the puberty blockers into cross-sex hormones do? I'm really worried about sterilizing minors who can't even get a tattoo. It's like, to me, that seems, and you can say it in a way that's not confrontational. It's not judgmental, right? It's just, you're just sticking to your own belief system if you feel the need to get into it at all. But that's how I would do it. I think just the number one thing, though, is not to bring your judgment into it. If you genuinely want to just hear how they feel, don't bring your judgment in. If you are trying to persuade, all the more reasons to just keep asking questions and gently start introducing the things that make you feel differently and hear how they overcome them, if at all. But I mean, as a rule, when I'm in my personal life and I'm with people who are not of my political persuasion, I don't talk politics.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I have to say, we live in very messy and complicated times. I was at a wedding over the weekend, and my uncle is not a fan of many of the ways that the topics are covered on the show. And yet he loves Nicole Shanahan. And so I said, oh, Nicole's coming on next week. I was like, oh, that's great. Love her.
That's so cool. There's always some common ground. As Kamala Harris might say, there's a Venn diagram in which we overlap.
That's right. Nicole, right in the middle. Okay, last one, something fun. This is from Erin. She's a mom of 3 teens in Ontario. She says, thank you for your balanced and courageous mama bear-like news coverage. But then she says, this may sound trite, but I would love to know the shade and brand of your most frequent lip color.
I get this question a lot. Okay. More often than not, it is not a lipstick. It is a lip liner. It's my favorite lip liner. I wear it almost every day. And then I'll either put just like some clear lip gloss or, lip balm on over it. Not every day, but a lot of days. And I have it here. It is made by MAC. And the color is Dervish. And I love it. It's neutral. It's like this kind of, doesn't look neutral. I don't know if you can see that. Put it in front of my pasty skin so you can see it looks, maybe I'll put it like here. Can you see? It might look not neutral, but it is kind of neutral. It's like slightly pink, maybe a little mauve, but on your lips, it's pretty benign. And I like that because it'll kind of go with anything. And I like sort of coloring in the lips, with it. I don't just do it as a liner. I put on the liner and then I put a little bit in the middle and then I just do the, where you smack your lips together. And then you just put on like your favorite lip balm over it. Or if I'm feeling saucy, then I'll add, an actual lip gloss over it. And I've got a bunch of different ones. We can get into the saucy days another time. I will say I have one right here. This is not what I would put over. Like this one. I actually got it in the Bahamas first. And now it's kind of hard to find, but it's by Reunited. And I like it because I wear this like sometimes when I have white on or like tan because it's this pretty brown. I'll put it on now. You can see what it does. It's got a little sparkle. All right. For the listening audience, I am putting it on. And you can see it's got like a little sparkle. So if you're like looking to call a little attention, maybe if the eyes are kind of not as made up, you could get away with that. But I really like that too. So those are my 2 makeup tips for today. But I'm not getting any money for these endorsements, so they're real.
Nice. Aaron will appreciate that. Thank you. Yes.
That's right. Enjoy, Aaron. I'll see you at the Mac store.
All right.
Well, so that's it, right?
That's it
for that's our first edition of the mailbag. We're not going to do a ton of them because we don't want to annoy you, but we thought we'd pick some that might be representative of like when we get a lot on one subject, and those were. So you guys keep the emails coming, the questions, to Megyn. It's spelled Megyn at megynkelly.com. All right, one last thing before we go. It is time for another edition of You Can't Say That. It's a franchise on the show that we decided to bring back where we highlight something that you cannot say or do or think in 2024. Like you cannot say Kamala. You cannot say that. You can't say Kamala. Kamala is a hard no, okay? This is so important. They give us a full lesson at the DNC involving children and songs, and you just don't do it or you're going to wind up getting weird sexts from Michael Eric Dyson. Okay, that's not all, though. Today, we're actually looking at the case of Zach Bryan, the superstar country music singer who made the enormous mistake. This was very dumb, Zach, of having a few too many drinks one night, getting on Twitter, now known as X, and letting the world know that he actually enjoys Kanye, or Ye West's music more than Taylor Swift's. The nerve. That sexist pig. Yes, the offending post was sent late on Tuesday night, September 17th, when he praised his favorite football team, the Eagles, and said that they were greater than the Kansas City Chiefs, the team Taylor's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, plays for. Then he followed that up with another equation in which he wrote Kanye and then the greater than symbol, like the little caret. Kanye greater than Taylor. OMG. He followed that up with, who's with me? Well, Zach, the internet is not with you because you apparently are not allowed to make negative comments about Taylor Swift. Well, guess what, Internet? We do it here all the time. For those who are not familiar with the backstory, Taylor Swift and Kanye have been feuding for more than 15 years after the rapper crashed the stage as Swift accepted a VMA award in 2009, and he said she shouldn't have won, and Beyonce should have won, and that was rude. But some people are not over it. There's been a whole back and forth between them, but the key factor to keep in mind is that Kanye West wore a MAGA hat and has some more recent questionable views when it comes to Jews. And Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris because she is such a fan of Tim Walz's LGBTQ policy. She loves to trans the children. That's Taylor. So how dare you, Zach? You're supposed to be on Taylor's side. You're supposed to be on Kamala Harris's side. And if you're not, you should have the good-natured instincts to keep it to yourself. Well, Zach learned this lesson right away as the Swifties came for him in short order. The next morning, the country singer tweeted, "Guys, I love Taylor," and followed up with, "If anyone took it serious, please know I love both artists a lot and think we're in a really beautiful time of music." Not good enough, Zach. The hate continued, and he deactivated his X account. Oh my God. I miss the real men. I'm sorry, Zach, but I miss real men. But he did not deactivate in time, you see. Before he did it, he issued a profuse apology on his Instagram page, spread over 4, count 'em, 4 lengthy Instagram stories. Bryan poured his heart out, apparently hoping to stop the Swiftie mob from their hideous attacks. Look at this one. "I wasn't coming for Taylor the other night. I was drunkenly comparing 2 records and it came out wrong. I know there's a lot of stuff that clouds around Ye, and I was speaking purely musically. I love Taylor's music and pray you guys know I'm human and tweet stupid things often. Hope one day I can explain this to her. Twitter gets me in trouble too much, and I'd say it's best I stay off of it. I'm sorry to any Taylor fans I pissed off or let down. Love you guys, and I'm trying my best." Oh my God, I have secondhand embarrassment. "Bring back our men." That wasn't it. He wasn't done. He continued. "It just came off as rude and desensitized to Taylor. I respect her so much as a musician that the last thing I want is people thinking I don't appreciate and love what she has done as a musician," he wrote, before closing it out with, "Don't drink and tweet." Oh my God. I'm sorry, Zach Bryan. Where are your balls? Mankind would like to know. That's the lesson, Zach. Don't drink and tweet. Sure. Here's another. If you're thinking of daring to say that you prefer someone else's, especially somebody who's endorsed Trump, music more than Taylor Swift's, well, you can't say that. Oh, wait. This is America. Thanks for joining me today and every day. Talk to you the next time.